which could include the use of chemical agents.
A high-profile immigration crackdown is abruptly losing its frontman and its footing. Gregory Bovino, the Border Patrol commander who emerged as the hardline face of Trump's interior enforcement push, is stepping away from Minneapolis as scrutiny over tactics, accountability, and command intensifies. Behind closed doors, the machinery is already shifting. Agents quietly withdrawn, titles erased, chains of authority ripped up and rerouted straight to the White House. What unfolded in Minneapolis was not just an operation gone wrong. It has forced a reset at the highest levels, and it may yet become a reckoning. Gregory Bovino is expected to leave Minneapolis this week, according to White House and administration officials. Once introduced as the commander overseeing Border Patrol operations in the city, Bovino is now losing that title. He is being reassigned back to El Centro, California, returning to his previous role as a Border Patrol sector chief along the southern border. The move marks a sharp change for an official who had become the most visible face of the administration's interior enforcement push. Bovino rose to prominence during Operation Metro Surge, a Department of Homeland Security initiative that flooded Minneapolis with Border Patrol agents to carry out immigration arrests. The operation was billed as a forceful response to illegal immigration, but it quickly drew scrutiny from local leaders and civil rights groups. Bovino's public briefings, media appearances, and blunt rhetoric placed him squarely at the center of a highly controversial mission. The operation took a deadly turn Saturday when Border Patrol agents fatally shot Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse. Bovino publicly claimed Preddy had been planning to massacre law enforcement, an assertion authorities have not substantiated. The killing ignited political backlash and raised urgent questions about intelligence, rules of engagement, and command oversight. Almost immediately, pressure mounted on DHS and the White House to explain how the operation was being run. Soon after the shooting, President Donald Trump announced a major change. Border Czar Tom Homan would take over the mission, reporting directly to the White House. Sources say Bovino will no longer oversee interior enforcement operations. At the same time, U.S. Customs and Border Protection is expected to reduce the number of agents deployed in Minneapolis, signaling a tactical pullback after days of controversy. The Department of Homeland Security insists Bovino has not been relieved of his duties. A DHS spokesperson called him a key part of the president's team. But behind the scenes, the restructuring is unmistakable. Titles have changed, chains of command have been rerouted, and an operation once projected as a show of force is now being quietly scaled down, under the shadow of a fatal encounter and intensifying public scrutiny.
Well, look, this has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation throughout the weekend. As for President Trump, whom I speak for, he has said that he wants to let the investigation continue and let the facts lead in this case.
FBI Director Kash Patel said in a Sunday interview, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest." Does the president believe the Second Amendment rights remain in effect even when protesting?
The president supports the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding American citizens. Absolutely. There has been no greater supporter or defender of the right to bear arms than President Donald J. Trump. So while Americans have a constitutional right to bear arms, Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede lawful immigration enforcement operations. And any gun owner knows that when you are carrying a weapon, when you are bearing arms and you are confronted by law enforcement, you are raising the assumption of risk and the risk of force being used against you. And again, that's unfortunately what took place on Saturday.
Minneapolis, will his mission continue to be focusing on illegal immigrants with a criminal history, or will it be on illegal immigration generally?
Mr. Holman will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws, especially deporting the worst of the worst criminals in Minnesota who have committed violent offenses. And I would just remind all of you that this important work is continuing to be carried out. In just the last few days, I'm happy to provide this packet to anyone in the room. ICE has arrested multiple violent criminals, illegal aliens within Minnesota. Many of them have convictions for assault, driving under the influence, fraud. This individual here I'm looking at was an aggravated felon with multiple convictions for larceny.
Thanks, Caroline. I want to go back to some of the comments from Stephen Miller and Secretary No. You made clear the president wants to see the investigation play out when answering some of the questions on the specific details. Is he concerned that some of those definitive statements made by other officials risks public perception of the credibility of those investigations now?
Again, the president believes that these investigations are credible, they are continuing, they are active, and he wants to let them play out. Alex.
Caroline, thank you. Is the administration willing to separate DHS funding from other funding bills in order to avoid a broader shutdown?
Look, at this point, the White House supports the bipartisan work that was done to advance the bipartisan appropriations package, and we want to see that passed. Policy discussions on immigration in Minnesota are happening. Look, the president is leading those discussions as evidenced by his correspondence with Governor Walz this morning, but that should not be at the expense of government funding for the American people, which would include, as you know, Alex, FEMA funding, and we are in the midst of the storm that took place over the weekend, and many Americans are still being impacted by that. So we absolutely do not want to see that funding lapse, and we want the Senate to move forward with passing the bipartisan appropriations package that was negotiated on a bipartisan basis.
With regards to the deployment of Tom Homan to Minneapolis, should the deployment of Mr. Homan to Minneapolis be seen as a sign that the president is dissatisfied with how the officials on the ground had handled the incident?
No, Mr. Homan is doing an exceptional job, and he has been working with Secretary Noem and President Trump over the course of the last year. Secretary Noem still has the utmost confidence and trust of the President of the United States, and she's continuing to oversee the entire Department of Homeland Security and all of the immigration enforcement that's taking place across the whole entire country. Of course, Secretary Noem is also in charge of FEMA, and we are in the wake of a brutal winter storm where hundreds of thousands of Americans have been impacted by that. So Borders Czar Homan is in a unique position to drop everything and go to Minnesota to continue having these productive conversations with state and local officials. And I know that he's catching a plane in just a few hours to do just that at the request of the president.
The role of Mr. Homan, is he being sent by the president to diffuse the situation that exists right now on the ground? Is he the point person essentially for the White House in terms of trying to tamp down the tensions that exist right now in Minnesota?
Well, Mr. Homan is the point person for cooperating with state and local authorities and corresponding with them, again, to achieve this level of cooperation to subdue the chaos on the streets of Minneapolis. And I would just point out that Mr. Homan is someone who has been lauded for many, many decades for his experience working in law enforcement. In fact, this is a Washington Post headline from 9 years ago, 2016. Meet the man the White House has honored for deporting illegal immigrants. And I would remind everyone in this room that it was former President Barack Hussein Obama who awarded a medal to Mr. Homan. So he's obviously very qualified. He has the full trust and faith of the president. He will continue to have these meetings in the hopes that ICE and local law enforcement can cooperate and work together to have successful immigration enforcement, as we've seen in almost every other state across the country.
Caroline, a couple quick questions. First, does the president remain fully confident in Kristi Noem's ability to lead the DHS?
Yeah. To your first question, the answer is yes. He still has confidence and trust in Secretary Noem.
With respect to the call with Governor Walz this morning, the president described it as respectful. He said, we seem to be on a similar wavelength, but you had strong criticism for the governor and the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, just now. So could you explain the difference in tone between what the president had said in his True Social post and I think some of the criticisms that you just levied from the podium?
Fran, I think the criticisms that I laid out, I'm painting the picture for all of you in this room, are what led to the moment that we are in today, where Governor Walz and President Trump are having a conversation, a constructive and productive conversation to end the chaos and the lawlessness that has taken place in Governor Walz's state. Elena.
I had a question. With Homan now going to Minnesota, is Gregory Bovino also going to remain in Minnesota overseeing these ICE operations?
Mr. Bovino is a wonderful man, and he's a great professional. He is going to very much continue to lead Customs and Border Patrol throughout and across the country. Mr. Homan will be the main point of contact on the ground in Minneapolis.
Does the president believe that the killing, though, was a mistake? Has he expressed that at all?
Again, the president has said, we have to review it, and this investigation needs to continue, and he's letting the facts on the investigation lead itself.